This is Scott Richmond
and Arnie Sherman.
You're listening to What Do You Know on Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM. Arnie, good morning.
Good morning, Scott. How are you today?
Good morning from America. What's going on in America today?
Well, it's Trump, all Trump, every day Trump, 24/7 Trump.
What?
So it's kind of hard to get around that. You can talk about sports, food, and then Trump, and that's it.
What happened today?
Well, today there was a New York Times story about Trump meeting starting in March with his staff about building a moat between the U.S. and Mexico and stocking it with alligators and snakes.
Seriously?
Yeah. And I just kept on thinking of what was it? Dr. What's his name? What's his name?
Dr. Evil.
Dr. Evil going, we need fricking sharks with fricking laser beams in their head, and we need to put them. It was like beyond comprehension. And the staff recorded as saying, Trump says, well, just shoot them. Just shoot them. And he said, well, we can't shoot them. And he goes, well, shoot them in their legs. And they're saying, you still can't shoot, asylum seekers. Well, and then he's going, build a wall in cement. Somebody says, I don't think that's even practical and possible. Even if we build, well, stop it tomorrow. It says it doesn't stop people from seeking asylum. And I don't want anybody seeking asylum. Stop it. I mean, it's like,
is he coming undone? I can't tell if this is a good ruse.
Well,
it's
game. Mike Myers as Dr. Evil. I just keep thinking that over fricking laser beams on the fricking sharks, and I want them swimming. And I mean, it's just beyond, just when you think there's nothing else that could possibly happen. It's like, hold my beer. Let's try this. Let's put laser beams on sharks and have them swim around. It's just incredible. And, ranting and raving again about Hillary's emails when 7 people, including his own daughter in the administration, are using private servers and using them all the time. I mean, it's crazy. Now, stepping away from this for a minute, I understand how partisan this all is. I mean, if these same Republicans who were supporting Trump, if this was Bill Clinton doing it, or if it was Obama doing it, they certainly would be yelling and screaming instead of going away whimpering. Or as Jeff Flake just said the other day to his Republican colleagues, former Republican senator,
right.
He said, you can always find another job. You can't always find another soul.
Good for Jeff Flake.
But it is so partisan. I mean, even Newt Gingrich was yelling and screaming about this impeachment is just a lynch mob. And when we impeached, Bill Clinton, when we impeached Bill Clinton, we had, evidence. And then somebody wrote, so you led the effort to impeach Bill Clinton because he was having an affair while you were having an affair on your wife and ended up ending your marriage. I mean, it's just, there's a big difference between someone having a consensual sexual relationship with a 21-year-old
right.
and lying about it, and somebody who is asking foreign government, withholding U.S. funds that were designated by Congress for aid, withholding them in return for personal political benefit. I mean, that is not, if not unconstitutional, it certainly is grounds for high crimes and misdemeanors.
Misdemeanors. I was going to say, we probably should say that we're recording the show October 1, 2019. But quite frankly, as you are talking and I am hearing you're going on your jag here,
yeah.
I'm thinking this could have been last year and it would have been an appropriate conversation. It knows no time.
No time.
It's constant.
Well, there's no check and balance to it. There's no one.
The shenanigans continue.
There's no one. He's decimated any real professionals out of his top staff, and there's no one there to be an internal check or balance.
I will say the following, Arnie. The good news is that while all this nonsense is happening in Washington and people are coming undone, I can always count on the good works of good people to carry me through and and renews my spirit or my belief in the human spirit and people want to do good.
And we have one of those on the show today.
That's exactly right. And our friend Howard Jaffe, Howard is somebody who I grew up with, oversees a charity called Teen Cancer America. It's affiliated and started by Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend of The Who.
In the UK, and he has brought it to America.
And Howie brought it to the United States in 2012, and he has just done amazing things with it. And look forward to speaking to him, and it'll be a good, lively hour of conversation on how do you start a charity with two rock gods, right, and idols, because that's really where it started.
With sharks with laser beams.
Okay, you know what? We're going to get Howie on the phone. We're going to be calling him. He's in Philadelphia. And right after this break, we'll bring Howard Jaffe, executive chair on the board of Teen Cancer America. Back after this. All right, we are back with Howard Jaffe. He is a founding member of Teen Cancer America.
And the treasurer.
And the treasurer. Howie, say hello to the audience.
Hello, everybody.
How are things in Philly?
Philly's nice, unseasonably very warm right now. Much warmer than we would normally have it. It's in the 80s, going to hit 90, and it's October, so it should be in about the 60s. But,
what's going on with the Eagles?
Eagles are holding steady at 2-2. They had a nice win against the Packers Thursday night, so everyone's pretty much rallied around them. So we're still Super Bowl bound as far as we're concerned.
Yeah, you have the same record as the Giants. The Giants don't know what to do about that. That's it's unusual.
The only time we worry about the Giants is when we play them and then beat them.
Yeah, well, that's what's been happening fairly regularly.
Well, we got a new QB in town, my friend.
Yes,
that's true.
So
no more Eli to kick around. Mm-hmm.
But back to the important thing.
Yeah,
Teen Cancer America, and you have a slogan. Is it "Who cares"? Is that the slogan for the organization?
Sort of. Who Cares is really the Who's charity arm, and then we sort of kind of continued it on when we founded Teen Cancer America. So we used the Who Cares logo and then added Teen Cancer America.
Well, tell us a little bit about the genesis of Teen Cancer America and obviously the role that the Who play in that.
Well, the story is that the Who were involved in a very similar charity, our sister charity back in the UK called the Teenage Cancer Trust. And they had, had been involved with it for 20 years, sort of founded by the doctor of Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey. And they were very supportive of the doctor's efforts and sort of made the Teenage Cancer Trust their charity of choice. That's kind of the background of where it all started, and then I helped bring it to America.
And why did you do that? Why did this become a passion of yours?
Well, for me, I'm a lifelong Who fan back from the first farewell tour in 1982, and I've kind of been just a really, really big fan ever since. But I thought when I heard about what they were doing in the UK and kind of realized that it wasn't here in the U.S., I thought that it was a good idea to bring it here, and I wanted to honestly pay it forward, my love for the band. I thought this would be a great way to pay my enjoyment of their music forward to them, and that's really what sort of kickstarted me to do it.
And you reached out to them and their team, and they were very receptive to this?
I don't know about very receptive. I mean, I think, of course, they were always looking for help, but I don't think they knew what to make of it at the time. It was a very, again, UK charity, not in the U.S., and I am sure that I came across like a crazy Who fan that I was and still am. And I don't know how much they believed that I could really do anything to help them. And that sort of led me on the journey to make it happen. I thought, well, I'll just keep pushing forward and see where this leads me. And there's no downside to it. It's a great idea, and it should be here in the U.S.
And I know you serve on this board and other not-profit boards, but in your work career, what do you focus at outside of all this?
I'm a lawyer by trade, and I did that for many years in Philadelphia, and that sort of brought me into the nonprofit world, but in a whole different direction, where I'm in healthcare and skilled nursing facilities, and so that kind of opened up some avenues that I didn't expect, and kind of gave me some knowledge into the nonprofit world and into a little bit of healthcare that kind of helped me along the way. But really, the charity preceded that, although it came to fruition around the same time that I jumped into the world of healthcare.
And what was the need in teen cancer that sparked their creation in the UK and also became the parallel interest here in the United States? What need does this fulfill?
It fulfills the need that teens, when they are diagnosed with cancer, generally have no place to be placed. That sounds ridiculous, no place to be placed, but they have no place to put a teen when they're diagnosed with cancer in a traditional hospital. Either they go into the pediatric unit, or they go to a pediatric oncology hospital, or they're placed with the adults. And it's very isolating, and it's been sort of studied that teens who are placed with other teens and are offered psychosocial services specifically for teens have a much better outcome and a better sort of situation. That was the real need. That's what happened in the UK, and that's what we're replicating here in the U.S.
And there's really two sides to this coin. One is the programs that funding allow to happen, and then the other side is the solicitation of money to build the programs. How has that all been sculpted?
Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, the bottom line for any nonprofit organization, and Teen Cancer America is a nonprofit 501c3, so anybody who wants to donate, I would encourage to go to our website, teencanceramerica.org, and hit the donate button. But, our seed money, if that's what you're asking, came really from the WHO themselves. They're very much behind this. This is not just, we'll just get behind a charity and we'll kind of be in the background, because they're both very hands-on, especially Roger Daltrey. Roger goes to hospitals, what have you, and speaks all over the country and all over the world about this. But that's the initial seed money, was to fund us, or Teen Cancer America, becoming an organization. And now we rely on donations and the WHO themselves and other events all around the country to raise our funds. But fundraising is a huge sort of issue and ongoing, never-ending venture.
What do you think was the impetus of Roger Daltrey's desire to kind of impact teens? Like, what's the story behind that?
So for Roger, and I think for Pete too, but Roger talks about this, he'll tell you that teens themselves, or the group of teenagers, gave the WHO their success, their identity. That back when the WHO were being formed and tried to break out as a band in the mid to late 60s, their audience was teens. And they were practically teenagers themselves. They were only 19, 20 years old. But their venues that they played were packed with teens. So both, I think, feel that they're paying it back, that teens gave them their life and really gave music its life, or popular music at least.
Did you
all
hear
the classic rock bands?
Well, Hal, when you first heard him mention that and say that, were you like, did you help him form that message, like that kind of talking point, or was that something he came to the table with?
I think he came to the table with that. I think when he was really becoming the celebrity identified with the Teenage Cancer Trust in the UK, I think a great reason for him wanting to do it, and Pete, and really, and the other guys who are in the WHO band and the whole WHO organization, was this very sort of heartfelt obligation to pay it forward, like I'm saying I'm doing, but they wanted to sort of pay it forward to the teens who gave them success. So that was already sort of in place, and that really was the foundation for why I believe that Roger and Pete and the whole WHO organization are behind it.
So take me to the time when you first sat in the room presenting this to Roger Daltrey, and what was that like? Because starting a new charity with somebody who you admire from afar but don't really know, it has a lot of risks, but could have potentially great rewards, which thankfully you've been able to realize and continue to realize. But what was that first meeting? What were those first meetings like?
Well, in all honesty, the first meeting was very intimidating. Like you said, when you've admired someone from a distance for so long, and you hope that they'll be truly nice and friendly, because there's stories out there where people are not, or you're kind of let down by meeting someone you admired. But it was intimidating, but he was very, gracious with me. I presented the idea that we should have a Teenage Cancer Trust chapter in America. I don't know if he believed I could do anything about it, but he was very, heartfelt in listening to me. And they don't just let anyone wander backstage just for the sake of it. So I really had to kind of jump some hurdles to convince management that I was sincere and serious. But the first meeting was, intimidating. I, much like any other fan, I guess, still couldn't get past the fact that it was Roger Daltrey, and I had the stack of albums under my arm that I wanted him to sign. So there was still, a little bit of that, and maybe that threw it a little bit, that it wasn't all business. But that first meeting, I think, kind of broke the ice.
Well, you got to jump on the opportunity when you get those albums signed, because you never know.
Absolutely, right. That's true.
And then as you started to kind of shape this idea with him, and kind of in subsequent meetings, how did the relationship kind of what direction did the relationship go on? I got to believe that he started to realize how earnest you were, but also that this was an area you knew that you could impact. He took you more seriously.
Well, I certainly had to gain his trust, and I felt, he introduced me to a good friend of his, who's now a good friend of mine, a woman named Rebecca Rothstein, and Rebecca sort of became the liaison to Roger. I didn't talk to Roger directly in those early months or even years. It was always through Rebecca, again, so I could gain their trust. But once Rebecca realized that I was serious, and she was trying to form this for Roger and Pete at UCLA Medical Center as a one-off, not even as a U.S. charity, just as a one-off entity. And when I convinced her that my background as an attorney and being in the nonprofit world, and that I was sincere and also was working with what many would consider the number one pediatric oncology hospital in the world, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, which is in my backyard, basically, that I was onto something and that I was legitimate. And that kind of broke the ice to convince Roger that this was real. And I moved away from being the Who fan many times and really got to the crux of what the charity would be all about, and that this was serious stuff.
And Rebecca has become the chair of the board, is that correct?
Yes, Rebecca is our board chairman, and she is terrific. She spends more time working everything out for the charity than she'd care to admit. She's a very highly successful money manager in the Los Angeles Beverly Hills area.
How did she know Roger and the folks from the Who?
They had some mutual friends from years ago, and just kind of hit it off as a friendship, and then kind of just went from there. Just like I don't think she's the type of person who is starstruck and wasn't a Who fan. So I think it legitimately started out as a friend of friends, and they just became great friends. And she was very, passionate about helping him. I think she recognized what he was trying to accomplish, I guess, much like I did.
That's amazing. I have to believe this. I think everybody knows who Roger Daltrey is. Even Rebecca Rothstein did, right? But so his celebrity, in a way, just because of who he was, I think people want to work for them. They want to work harder for them. They know that if they have a passion and they can work with somebody with that type of celebrity, that they could instantly make it bigger and instantly make it more successful. So it is in some ways very mutual, I would imagine, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
Because, right, it's all pulling in the direction of the good for the community.
What role does Pete Townsend play in this? You mentioned Roger, but they're co-mentioned as founders, and
they are. Yeah, I mean, and Pete's role is when it comes to the Who's involvement is as significant as Roger's, because the Who donate so much energy and certainly money to the charity. So Pete, of course, has to be a part of that. And Pete has signed on to do many of the charity concerts that we've done for Teen Cancer America. There have been several. So he's involved in that direction. But I think he honestly saw that Roger really wanted to make this his baby. There's another charity that who we're involved in, the Double O charity for autism, and Pete's very heavily involved in that. So they sort of each have their pet projects, but both help each other out when it comes to fundraising.
And they're still passionate about their music. I just happened to notice yesterday there was an article about them having to cut a concert short because Roger Daltrey lost his voice on stage. And I mean,
that's true. They did. He's okay.
But they're still. How old is Roger now? 70 yet?
Roger is. If he hears this, Roger's 75 and Pete is 74.
Right, and they're still out there performing. You know,
it is
50 plus years later.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I know that I'm a big fan, but if anyone has the opportunity to see them while they're still out there, it is an amazing show. It is the powerful Who. I mean, it's the powerful Who of 2019, but it is powerful. It is entertaining, and it's a great time.
Yeah, and they invented. You know, they're one of the progenitors of this genre of music, of like teen angst, kind of pre-punk, kind of angry rock, realistic, and you can put your finger on a few people that really helped.
Right. Well, I mean,
push this forward.
One of the handful of iconic visions is Peter Townsend just jumping in the air, slashing at his guitar with the big windmills.
But the interesting thing was, no matter if he's 75 or if he's 25, he's still selling the intent of the song, right? It's that's what's so great about these guys. It doesn't matter how old he is, and it all kind of makes so much sense now.
What's interesting about the Who, the Beatles, I mean, anybody that emerged in that era, that these songwriters and performers in their early 20s wrote music that is still appealing a half a century later.
Yeah.
I mean, when we were kids growing up, if you listen to music from 50 years earlier, it was like Ragtime or Al Jolson, or I mean, it was just. It was
a little older than we were.
But even if you're 40 now and you're listening to stuff 30, 40 years ago, it doesn't all hold up. Their stuff held up, and the words still have meaning. And Pinball Wizard and all of the things that they're connected with still has vitality 50 years later.
Timeless.
Yeah.
Well, so, Howie, to give us your perspective, how many Who shows have you seen over the years?
Oh, I don't know, probably over 50.
Wow.
I guess, I don't know, through the years. I mean, Pete solo shows, Roger solo shows, different incarnations of the Who through the years. I would at least say 50.
What's it like being on the other side of the fence now, though? Not being kind of in the crowd, but being on the side of the stage.
It's still an honor and a privilege each night that I get to go, to have the access that I do. It's terrific. I mean, I have such a unique perspective. I see them before the shows. I've eaten meals with them, and then to see them perform. And I remember the 15-year-old that I was, in my high school, bedroom with all my Who posters and my Who albums. Right. So it's unreal, to be honest.
Howard, is there one concert that stands out from all of them in particular?
I mean, for me, to see the Who, I'm from Philadelphia, so the few times that many times that they passed through here, there was a concert, I forget what year, maybe in 2013, that was particularly just great when they came through Philadelphia. But also, Roger did a solo show for the charity that I put together, where it was Roger and the opening act was Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, and they raised money for our first unit at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. That's kind of the end of my story, but that concert was particularly great, probably because I had a big part in it, but also Roger was just in great form that night, and it was a wonderful show. But I jokingly say I've never seen a bad Who show.
Well, that's good. And Joan Jett has become an ambassador for the program, hasn't she?
Yes. As a result of her playing for us at that concert in 2014, she actually went on the road with the Who the following year as their opening act, and then really got behind us and is super helpful when we've called on her for other events and to meet with some of the teens around the country. She's really been terrific. She's unique too.
And there's some other artists like Eddie Vedder, Robert Plant, who happened to be in Missoula Saturday night and did an outdoor concert on a crispy evening here. They're also involved. Yeah.
I mean, as you can imagine, being sort of these iconic rock guys, Pete and Roger and the Who, they know everybody. Everybody knows everybody. So yes, we've been fortunate to have Robert Plant on board, and as you mentioned, Eddie Vedder with Pearl Jam. Eddie's been terrific. He has played many concerts for us, with The Who, without them, you name it. We had Ed Sheeran get on board, Don McLean got on board. We now have a concert coming up with the Foo Fighters, and Dave Grohl's been on board.
And
Pink,
Ben Perry.
Ben Perry.
Ben Perry got behind us as ambassadors. They were terrific.
How many events do you do
terrific.
a year? How many events like this, like fundraising events, do you do a year, would you say?
Well, the fundraising concerts themselves, I mean, it's based on when the Who go on the road, and fortunately they've been a pretty consistent touring act in the last couple of years. So usually once a year, once every 18 months, we manage to have some large event. But we truly rely on everyone, doing the little fundraising, the car wash, the local event, something at a cover band raises money, $500 here, $200 there. We rely.
So grassroots, and listen,
grassroots,
and listen to create kind of a roadmap for this charity beyond the Who, right? Because you're going to need to if it's going to sustain, because they're not going to tour forever. But all the bands that they influence, and that, to your point, pay it forward. I would imagine, as part of your planning, there's an active recruitment effort to get other bands onto this thing to really help this kind of go beyond the Who, right? In a big way.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the challenges that we recognize as a charity, and I talk about this with our board since I see the funds, is what happens when the Who stop touring. And, unfortunately, it'll be sooner than later. I mean, and they recognize that, and I think that's expected, and they've certainly, their place in history is well cemented. But is to sort of get away from Teen Cancer America being the charity of the Who and make it more the charity of music. And that's where we're trying to kind of direct it, as the Who say, okay, stop relying on us, let's make this about music. And so Roger and Pete have really tried to talk to the other bands, and you can see the result of some of these groups getting on board. But we're really looking for even younger acts that are currently out there and say, hey, get behind us, because, again, without teens, they're not going to be anything. And teens are the ones who support all this music.
Well, and and you just look at all the how involved teens are. If you look at climate change, gun control, talk about getting their voice and really kind of leading the charge. The last couple of years, certainly the last 3 years, has been a great example of kind of just the power of that collective voice. And so,
well, I think
very timely.
Yeah, I think so, and then that kind of is our challenge as well. I think we see teens getting more involved with us, but like any other charity, you want your targeted audience to help, and teens are great at grassroots fundraising and even very large fundraising at some of the universities around the country. They have huge dance stunts and raise millions of dollars, but it's usually earmarked for children's charities or adults, and that's wonderful, and no one should stop doing that. But we really kind of hope that teens who are sort of putting on these events will start to realize that, hey, I need to help my own peers.
Yeah.
And many of these teens have friends that are right there with them who've gone through this. So we're always trying to push for teens to help teens.
So, Howard, let me focus on the program a little bit. The United States is 6 times the size of the United Kingdom. It's about 66 million people in the UK. We have 335 here. How did the program evolve to this point? I mean, is it like that old joke? How did the ant eat the elephant one bite at a time? How did you take on the United States?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, as you said, it's so large. Where do we start? So we basically started with what were our connections. Mm-hmm. Rebecca Rothstein was in Los Angeles, and she was working in UCLA. Roger himself has some connections in the New England, Connecticut area, so he talked to Yale University, and I was kind of working through kind of not really a connection, but saying that I had a connection at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And that's kind of how we started it out. We said, okay, we have these 3, and 3 pretty influential hospitals with CHOP, UCLA, and Yale, that we thought, okay, if we could just get maybe 1 or 2 of them off the ground, we'd be on our way. And we thought we would get credibility, in doing so. So especially, again, I'm biased, but Children's Hospital of Philadelphia is internationally recognized, and I thought, well, if we would have a unit at CHOP, no matter what its size, it would give us that sort of stamp of approval that this charity is real and that other hospitals would want to get on board with us. And that's kind of how we started it. And that did happen.
And so what is the program at CHOP? What does this charity fund at CHOP?
So what we funded at CHOP, and CHOP is really, really tight for space, as every hospital really is. But so CHOP was able to give us in a new building that they had built called the Berger Center, an outpatient room, and that's a little different. We do different things at different hospitals based on space, but they gave us an outpatient room where teens can congregate on their own, congregate together or sit on their own, whatever they desire. And it's if you look on our website, you can see what some of these rooms look like. They look as best we can based on the parameters of what a hospital can allow to make it look like this is where you'd expect a teen to be, with the furniture being teen-oriented, flat screens on the wall, a music system, dedicated Wi-Fi, iPads available if they don't bring their own, chargers, all that good stuff, and just a place to be. But also, as just as important, maybe some would argue more importantly, there's psychosocial services involved. So we set out to help through our own program, or our own sort of guidelines, to help the hospitals implement a program for their staff. So a social worker can maybe get focused on teens, the psychologist get focused on teens, because what the charity has found in the UK, and even when we started, was that it really wasn't the case. There's some good programs out there, but not really, really focused on just teens. So that's sort of the two-parter. It's environment, it's creating space for them, and it's also addressing their psychosocial needs. We don't get involved in the medicine. We, firmly believe that the good doctors of this country have that aspect of it, under control and really know, what they're doing. So we have nothing to do with the medical side, so to speak, other than pushing for more protocols, more studies for teens. We kind of push that because, again, just like everything is aimed towards children and adults, even teens don't have as many studies on the cancer-fighting drugs and the different protocols.
Let's do a quick ID. Our guest is Howard Jaffe. He's a founding member of Teen Cancer America and the treasurer of the U.S.-based organization. Howard, what's it like when, you talk about like children's charities and children's hospitals. Do you ever find yourself in a competition with another not-for-profit at a particular hospital, and they choose them versus you or both? Like, has that ever come about?
Not so much competition like that. Fortunately, because no one really does what we're doing, so we don't run up against, these guys are doing the exact same thing. There's been some one-offs, and I can't honestly think of the names off the top of my head, but there's been some one-offs at certain hospitals where, unfortunately, a teen has passed away and a family's gotten very behind creating some type of local foundation. And so at times they say, well, we kind of have this going on here, but we're able to sort of join up or say, well, we can enhance that. We'll offer a grant, because that's how we operate, is by offering grants initially to the hospitals. So like anything else, if they find out, hey, there's some funding involved, that, kicks open doors, because funding is tight at most hospitals, and we say, hey, we're going to come in, but we're also going to, fund you, and we have a whole methodology of doing that.
And how many?
No direct competition.
And how many grants have you awarded to how many hospitals?
We have 30 hospitals now in our short existence since 2013. We just hit 30. So we have to manage that each year. We can't fund every hospital who wants to get on board. Obviously, we can only fund what we can reasonably afford. So based on that, we have 30 done, and I believe 60 hospitals interested or, in the queue, so to speak. And then we really are trying to, blanket the country. So if a teen was diagnosed with cancer in Missoula, there would be a Teen Cancer America unit not too far away. And that's really our goal, as we try to just fill the entire,
what's the
United
largest
States, which is not easy.
What is the largest kind of installation of a Teen Cancer America ward or unit that's in existence now?
I believe we have it now in Cleveland. They're going to kill me for not remembering the hospital.
At the Cleveland Clinic?
It is at the Cleveland Clinic. I forget, there's like a specific name. Now that was funded by a family who is also involved with us, who are on our board, the Fowlers, and it is an amazing full-sized unit. I guess the best way I could describe it, it's inpatient, it's outpatient. There's an exterior balcony, sort of an exterior garden up on one of the high floors. I mean, it is beautiful and high end.
And how much does that unit cost to run a year?
Well, to run or to the development was millions of dollars.
Right.
To run, it varies, Arnie. I can't give you a specific number on each hospital, but generally speaking, the grants can go, as high as $400,000 to, get the thing, get it underway.
It's not insignificant.
Right.
No, it's real money. This is real money.
And and let's say a smaller hospital in Missoula, Montana. Mm-hmm. That's if you had a bed or two or a room or two.
Oh, we would love that.
That would be a successful installation.
Absolutely. I mean, we want Teen Cancer America to be anywhere a teen would be diagnosed. So whether it's an outpatient unit like here in Philadelphia, where it's just one room and social services, or Missoula, Montana, where you say same thing. Hey, we have enough space. We can do an outpatient room, or we can do 2 inpatient beds, along with the services. We're on board with that. So if someone in Missoula wants to get in touch with us, please reach out to us.
And do you have a fundraising goal every year? How much you want to raise, or is there a target that you want to build so that you have a corpus that you can loan against?
I mean, the joke is as much as possible.
Right.
There's no ceiling. Right. I mean, every charity would say that.
Right.
So, no, I think if we don't set it like that. We really look at, what can we raise, and then based on that, how many would we like to grant each year. Now, part of it is also the manpower. We have a terrific executive director named Simon Davies, and Simon was the executive director of the Teenage Cancer Trust and felt he could do great things in coming over to the U.S. and helping us get underway, and he stayed. And he's got a team, but it's, like any other charity, it's not a large team, so they only have so many resources. So part of our limitation on units is not just the fundraising, is manpower.
Right.
How many can we legitimately get underway? Simon goes out and sees most of these units in person, if not all of them, once we're really underway. So there's only so many places he can be at once.
And we
try to limit it because... Yep.
Where's the organization headquartered?
In Los Angeles. And that kind of gives us a nice footprint of where many celebrities are, obviously.
Sure.
And every major rock act comes right through Los Angeles, so sometimes we can get their ear in person. And Rebecca, our chairperson, is out there as well.
And she's actively... Is this her full-time gig now, Howard?
No, but... sometimes I'm sure she would tell you it feels like it. I talk to Rebecca sometimes several times a day, and definitely several times a week. It is endless, her involvement. She is one terrific person.
But you have an ED though, right? You have an executive director.
Simon is the ED. Yeah, that right. Is Simon Davies is our ED, the executive director. Yeah.
But you often find that the treasurer is brought into almost everything that's going on.
I am. I'm the bottom line, and I take a look at the legal documents, so I'm always involved in some aspect.
Did you have?
It's great.
Did you have other experience being a treasurer in your career?
Scout Group 104.
Not even in the fraternity days. No, I had no prior experience.
How about the hockey club that you're a member of?
No, yes, I play ice hockey. My hockey team. Oh, and yeah, my high school alumni game. I help run. Or I run every Thanksgiving. I do collect the funds. But rather small compared to what Teen Cancer America does.
You mentioned the whole WHO organization, so it goes beyond the actual front of house musicians and the founders.
Yeah,
and is management and production involved, and Well,
very very much so. So I'm sure they won't mind me saying this. The two WHO managers, the legendary Bill Kerbishley, who's been the WHO's manager forever. Also managed, I think, Led Zeppelin and many other bands. He's a terrific guy. He's on our board as well as his business partner, Robert Rosenberg. who's been with the Who forever. They are both on our board, so they are obviously very hands-on and very passionate. And once they realized that we were going to bring this whole concept to America, they wanted to be a part of it, and of course we welcome them to be a part of it. They
definitely.
knew so much about the Teenage Cancer Trust. So I mean, they're involved. The road crew, the road manager, gentleman named Rex King, who turned into a great friend. All these people are very much behind when it's a Teen Cancer America event, whether it's a meet and greet, a VIP access before a show. They have to coordinate a lot of that. And even production has to be aware there's now people backstage, and they're watching the whole setup. Whole Who organization, I call it the Who family, are very much behind everything that Teen Cancer America does.
And not every, here's the interesting, tale. Not every one of these bands that are of this stature necessarily are actively recording, which the Who are, actively touring, which the Who are, and then active in raising funds for a charity like this in such a proactive way. I mean, you got to kind of hand it to them. I mean, a lot of their peers and contemporaries are, they're happy if they play, the Mohican Sun in the Borgata and, in other casinos around the country, doing a greatest hits package. These guys are recording new music, right, Hal? And
November 22nd, new album is dropping.
I find that amazing.
That is amazing.
It's amazing, and it's I guess it goes to show you that it's important that a band like that also stay together for a good like this. It hasn't always been. I'm not asking you to comment on this, but you can acknowledge it hasn't always been a smooth sailing with these guys.
It hasn't always been harmonious. There have been breakups and fights.
I am sure they would admit to that readily.
Sure.
But it is amazing. Look, for me, I think, and many, not just me, I think Pete Townsend is probably the single greatest rock composer. The other bands, the Beatles, it was Lennon McCartney, the Stones are Jagger and Richards, and all the other bands are collaborations where it's really Pete writes the music. But I also think Roger Daltrey is the single greatest rock singer ever. He hits every range, every high note, low note, and he can still belt out a song like nobody. So, they're unique, and then they'll tell you that. I mean, they won't tell you they're unique. They'll tell you they're lucky that it just all came together.
Yeah,
they really will readily.
And it lasted this long.
And they can play Madison Square Garden and sell out Madison Square Garden, and that's an entertaining show. I mean, they'll put on a good show. And if he doesn't have the full range that he may have had 20 years ago,
right,
the way that they present it with different musicians and backup singers, and it works, right? And you got to hand it to him.
Well, not only in the U.S., they could go to the Mercedes-Benz Arena
in
Berlin and sell out 70,000.
Yeah,
Phil Collins was there when I was there. He sold out 70,000 seats.
They came through Philadelphia on this last tour. We were one of the outdoor venues. They played Citizens Bank Park, the home of the Phillies, the baseball Phillies, and 60,000 people. They were also recently, I think, on the second leg of this tour, Fenway Park in Boston, sold it out. Because they're iconic, and there are not many like them left, and they're still able to do it, and hopefully for a few more go-arounds until they say they've had enough. But they're pretty amazing when it comes to performing. I'm amazed at what they can do.
Well, what's interesting about it is it's its own economy, right? It feeds tons of families, dozens of families, because of people that work on the production and the merchandising and the production crew and the front of house mixers and the engineers. It really is its own economy.
Well, they don't need to be. I mean, the truth is that Roger and Pete don't need to be fed anymore. I mean, they're wealthy men.
But people rely on them.
But they have a a large family that relies on them, and now they have a charity that they want to help support. I
was just going to say, as part of that is, and we would be the first to admit it, that we rely heavily on the Who when they're on the road and touring, because they're very generous. They would also tell you $1 from every ticket goes to the charity, and that can be quite significant when they're playing 60,000 seat arenas, and then the smaller hockey basketball arenas, that seat 20,000, and are routinely selling them out we get substantial income, so we rely on them. I mean,
Yes.
it is amazing.
Yeah, they need to, I think, what has to happen over the next couple of years, and actually sooner rather than later, is they need to develop the next who are going to carry the torch for Teen Cancer America. Then that's key to keep it going.
That is our goal. We talk about that all the time. What happens next? How do we find the next act who's going to nod their head and say, we get it and we want to help? And most bands are very generous about it, but most bands already have their own foundations, and that's what we kind of are realizing is the true problem.
And most
by the time a band,
I was going to say most bands
have success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, I was going to say most bands in 2020 aren't going to be here in 2070. It's a different different kind of collaboration now. They're not built to last 50 years anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't know who can have that staying power.
I don't think you'll ever see it again. Because once you have a group now, I mean, you follow all the super groups of the last 20-plus years, anybody that stood out, they went out as a single, and that was the end of the group. From Phil Collins and Janet.
They went solo.
Yeah, went out solo. There are very few that are going to reunite, the original Genesis or the original, super group where they got their roots from. Even groups like O'Sherry, Journey.
Oh yeah,
he won't go back, and they have a Filipino lead singer. Right. It's not the same. Steve
Perry. No, I know. Foreigners out there, I think, with a different lead singer, and sometimes Lou Gramm sings with them. I'm not sure.
Right.
But I agree. I think that's part of the uniqueness of the Who is that they're still out there doing it, still performing, top notch, and still putting out albums.
It's incredible.
I keep saying it's amazing. It is.
Well, within the music business, what the way to really kind of get ahead of something like this is you do artist development. So you're trying to develop artists as they're on the upswing who don't have enough, don't have a Q score at this point to kind of say, I'm going to lead a charity. But if they break and you help them break, then they're like, wow, this is part of, the Who got behind me. Their charity is something I'm really passionate about. I want to carry the torch now. Imagine if you did that with a Billie Eilish or an artist, 3 years ago, you would be in a great position. But so I think that's a perhaps a way to philosophically approach the artist development aspect of it, which is the big opportunity, but also the big challenge.
It's a huge challenge. I mean, I like you just mentioned a few names. I mean, we've talked to many of their management, their people, and it's difficult. Let's just put it that way. They all have their pet projects, and we respect that. But just trying to find that one breakthrough, we're still looking. So again, we would love for a young band up on the kind of coming up to get behind us
on the upswing.
The upswing. That's what I was trying to say.
Howie,
we would love that.
How just like by way of background. So, what are the things like outside of the charity, outside of kind of what you were normally thinking, like when you started to be in the presence of a Pete Townsend? What's the takeaway? Like you were a fan from a distance for so long, and now you're kind of working alongside of him. What are some of your takeaways, your impressions, thoughts, remembrances? What are some?
Well, again, it's sort of like meeting Roger. It's intimidating because they're bigger than life in a lot of ways. They'll tell you don't look at them like that, but they are who they are. They're just so iconic. If you're into classic rock or even just music in general, you're aware of who they are. Pete's a very funny guy, very sarcastic. But a genuine person and really a nice person. You think about all the songs he's written and
he's a great writer.
The huge albums. Quadrophenia and Tommy. Who's Next? Who Are You? And these just songs that are played everywhere nonstop all the time. There's probably not a station right now not playing a Who song that Pete wrote. Every minute of the day, somewhere in the United States or around the world.
It's nice to hear. It's nice to hear about those two guys. I mean, there's an old adage in politics and in entertainment: the closer you get, the smaller they are. And rather than being larger than life, and in this case, you've met too that live up to their larger than life reputation. I've had a couple of experiences in my career running into celebrities that have been off putting.
Yeah,
and that taints it for the rest of your life.
Well, I think again, I'm grateful they've never been like that to me. I think part of it now is because I'm so involved with the charity, and they're used to seeing me around, so I just kind of become, one of their acquaintances. I don't know if I could call them friends. I guess I could, but they're used to me. And they know I'm working hard for them.
I would think.
They
I
both
think that
told me on that.
I say that's a friendship because you know what though, you made a claim, you actually delivered on the claim, and you'd actually help them build something that they're probably not only proud of, but it makes sense on many levels. It's impacting their career in a positive way.
And you happen to be a fan at the same time, which is great.
You need some, and I think I'm curious. What was to Roger for a second? So now, having been in his presence in a way that you probably never thought you'd be before, what are some of the takeaways with someone like that? Like, what have you noticed? What have you admired? What have you said? Hey, wow, that's weird. I didn't think he was like that.
Well, you're right. I mean, I've had the opportunity to sit down and have meals with Roger, and then you're really kind of just a couple of people sitting around a table, and it is very interesting. He's a very well-read guy, very aware of current politics, especially in the UK, but also in the US. And it is interesting to get away from the music for a bit and just kind of talk like two people, what's going on in the world. It is hard to completely remove yourself when you're looking at him, and I think I can, hum or know the lyrics to just about every Who song, and yet he knows more than I do, and that rarely happens in my life when it comes to some love for the Who. But honestly, sitting there with him, he's just, I don't know how else to put it, he's just a genuine good man, and thoughtful, and talkative, and everything you'd hope someone like that to be once you get to know them.
Isn't this amazing, these once-in-a-lifetime experiences that he's had, and it'll forever be part of his life. It's a sustaining kind of.
Well, it's a legacy. It has legacy written all over.
It's great, Howie. Because
thank you.
He wants to call me by Scooter, but
I'm about to call you Scooter.
There's a story to the Scooter, I'm sure.
Quick background. So Howie and I go back to when we were 18 years old. So when we went to college together, and I had Lou Reed, he had Roger Daltrey and the Who, and he and I
both got to meet your idols,
commiserate and talk. We compare notes, but we were like, something. Not only did we get to meet our heroes, I got to work with our heroes and see the side of them that made them even more important to you versus being disappointed, because boy, that's always a tough thing, to be disappointed. They seem, to your point, smaller, Arnie.
Yeah,
and they're bigger than life. And and you're right. Being on a level where you're talking to them about everyday things, it kind of level sets. And that's important. We are all human, and we're just trying to do our thing.
Yeah, I mean that's true. And to bring it back to what Scott just said, who I call Scooter my whole life, when we were 18, and I found out more sort of about Lou Reed from Scooter back then, and he knew my love for the Who, and we've talked about it in later years of how unbelievable it is. It's people we admired, we got to know. So I think it is unique, and we're lucky. But it's also, I think, you believe in, you're passionate about things, and the artists recognize that, and you kind of get away from being just a fan. And I'm sure Scott can tell you all his stories with Lou. I mean, he knew Lou intimately. I don't know Roger quite like I think Scott knows Lou or knew Lou.
No.
But yeah, it's a special place to be, and I don't take it for granted at all.
In my case, I was a big fan of Albert Einstein, but I didn't have a chance to commiserate with him. So,
what is so special that my friend Evan told me? He goes, I go, boy, was I lucky? And he goes, you know what? He was lucky, or the Who are lucky that you are in their life, and never forget that. That they were lucky to have you, or lucky to have you as part of their.
You made something happen that will extend their legacy, not only geographically but in over time.
Yeah. Well, I could tell one little story that I really haven't shared with anyone. It's kind of funny and heartwarming at the same time. So when we had the concert in Philadelphia, for the charity that Roger came in for, and it was a Roger solo show, but we did a meet and greet beforehand. And, of course, I brought my parents back there. And, so everyone's coming through the line, and my parents come up, and I say, "Oh, Roger, these are my parents." And they introduce them, and my mom says, "Oh, thank you, Roger. This is such a thrill for my son," as if I'm like a little boy still.
Yeah.
Such a thrill for my son. Thank you so much. And Roger actually said, because I was listening to it all, no, thank you for giving him to me because he's meant so much to develop this charity. And
wow.
I was like, whoa.
Well, that's really fantastic.
That's when I thought, okay, then this is real for him, and then he sort of recognizes I'm not just a crazy fan. So
listen, as we wrap it, I was going to say and it's a great story. To wrap this up, what's the best way people can find out more about the charity and donate?
So absolutely go to our website, teencanceramerica.org, and right on the front page, I'm actually looking at it now, there's a big red button in the upper right corner that says donate, and it will walk you right through a donation. We will be happy for any amount. It doesn't matter, like every charity says, but it's true. The $5, $10 donations are terrific. You can do it in honor of somebody, in memory of somebody. It doesn't have to be cancer-related. Just please donate.
All right. That's a beautiful story.
Howard Jaffe, it's been a pleasure having you on. This is your life.
Thanks, Howie.
Well, with Scooter there, it probably is that.
Arnie, I'll see you next week.
See you next week, Scott. Take care.
Thank you for listening to What Do You Know?
I can't wait for the next show, Scott.
I'm excited too, Arnie. If you'd like to suggest a guest, send me an email at scottrichman@townsquaremedia.com. We'll see you next week. And thanks for listening to Newstalk KGVO,